Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to my taste test challenge. And no, I'm not actually eating anything. This is a fairly popular idea going around on BookTube for a while now, where you have a group of books that you want to read, but you're not quite sure which one to go with, so you read the first chapter of every one. And I wanted to do this, however, just like narrowing it down, it seemed like a Herculean task. Like, what 4 or 5 books do I pick from the hundreds I should be reading? And then lately, a very famous author has come out saying some very transphobic things, and I'm not going to get into it, but if you're anyway connected with the book Turdet community, you know what I'm talking about. And there were a lot of recommendations for trans authors going around in response as a way to respond to hate with love, and I loved that concept. So I thought this is a fantastic time to do this taste test with books written by trans authors. So I have 4 books, 2 traditionally published and 2 indie published, because I'm still me and it is in December. All of these books I am interested in one way or another. I might end up reading more than one of them, but I am currently going to be looking for my very next read after, I've finished my in December stuff. So let's jump right into it. First on my list is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. This is a fantasy all about a world where everyone insists that there are no more monsters, and a protagonist, Jam, is confronted by this creature, and I believe it is called a creature made of horns and colors and claws that comes out of one of her mother's paintings, who is hunting a monster. The problem is, no one thinks they exist anymore, and the monster might be closer to Jam than she would like to admit. Now, this to me speaks of an analogy of a world in which people assume that there aren't bad things, i.e. the isms, and how do you address the isms when no one even believes that they're around anymore? That's my guess, my English teacher guess based on that synopsis. I am intrigued by this one. This is not the author's debut that's supposed to be the ultimate take. However, Freshwater, the first one, it seemed a little bit more magical realism or surreal than I usually go for, and this one seemed really intriguing to me as well, and it's shorter, so I can fit in that to slide in with my Goodreads goal for the end of the year. But so this is the first one that I will be reading a chapter of. Second up on my list for trans authors is Cluster by Jessica Conwell. This is a contemporary, and it focuses on being a trans woman because the main character is a trans woman who had grown up in a very conservative town that didn't really let her be who she was. But in her 20s, she finally grabbed the life she wants, running this retro toy shop / a lot of other things. And she thinks she has the perfect life, but then 2 of her 3 friends announce that they're leaving, and she realizes that the life she has isn't exactly there. I am really intrigued by this one because I don't think I've read a contemporary with a trans protagonist, so I'm really intrigued by that. And this also very much kind of focuses on trans identity, which being a trans author would definitely play into. And it's indie, and I always gravitate towards indie. I can't help it. My third book is also indie, and that is The Gospel of the Font by Faith Nath. This is all about an archaeologist who is very secular in her beliefs, but stumbled across a book that low-key might have been written by Lucifer. And not only is it written by Lucifer, but Lucifer has a plan for her. He wants her to be the Antichrist and tempt mankind with the forbidden fruit once again. I love this idea because I love a good cursed one story where the big fate hanging over our protagonist's head is a bad one that they're trying to fight against, and I love that. So I am really intrigued on this one. I also love archaeology. I believe she finds the book in Egypt, and I adored ancient Egypt as a kid. I think I've talked about that before. So I'm really intrigued by this one as well. Like I said, it's gonna be so hard to decide. Those first chapters are really gonna matter here. up next is the one I saw recommended the most on Twitter and the one I am the most excited for, and that is Dragon Pearl by Yoon Ha Lee. This is one of the Rick Riordan Presents series, and I've heard just fantastic things about Rick Riordan, but this one hits so many of my already beloved tropes and ideas. This is a sci-fi, a mid-grade sci-fi, all about a young girl named Min who wants to escape the dusty planet she lives on and go into the Space Forces. But she is told by others that her brother, who was already working in the Space Forces, has abandoned his post to go after the mythic Dragon Pearl. And Min knows he would never do that. That something else must be wrong. So she goes undercover to join the Space Forces and find out what happened to her brother. I am so intrigued by this. A, it is a space opera. I love a space opera. And B, it is a culturally based space opera, which is what I love the most. I do not know which Asian culture it is focused on. I want to say Chinese, but I could be wrong. But I've mentioned before that I hate how so much of sci-fi tends to portray culture as something to be evolved from, and they envision this future that's like cultureless, but it's never cultureless. It's just based on the culture that everyone considers default, i.e. white Western culture. And so to have a book that is very, very much a love letter to an Asian culture while being a space opera sci-fi sounds so interesting to me, and I saw this one recommended so much on Twitter, so like, I'm not gonna lie, the first chapter would probably have to really let me down for me to not gravitate towards this one. But like I said, I still got other indie books I gotta read. I still got, as I'm filming this, I got like a book and a fourth to finish in December, so I'm probably just distracting myself. But with no further ado, let's jump into the tasting. Alright, so chapter 1 is done, and I did not know that the main character in this is actually trans. They mention it. And also, she doesn't speak a lot. She actually signs, although she can hear. So I guess it's selective mutism. It's really cool, and I was right that it is basically an analogy for people assuming that everything good in the world has been made and all the badness is gone, and assuming that it's fine now. So it is a pretty spot on analogy, and a very much in your face analogy. The writing style feels a little bit like mid-grade, which was strange to me, and I don't know if that's intentional. This is in YA. It was shelved in YA. I think it's considered YA, but it reads like style-wise more mid-grade, and we haven't actually got to the crux of the synopsis yet, which makes me feel like the actual plot is probably going to move pretty quickly. But the family is adorable together. It's, it's an all-colored cast, an all, black cast, which is also awesome. If I didn't mention it before, and also I might have been misgendering before, Quake Emezi is, I believe, non-binary, at least they, them pronouns in the before and in the autobiography, is Nigerian, so I'm loving all of the diversity, but it's a little more on the nose than I thought, and it's not YA like I thought. So, a little different than what I was expecting, but again, I could probably still continue this later, because it's very short. Alright, did not the first chapter, but like the first 10% of Cluster by Jessica Conwell. There's a lot more focus on trans life in contemporary America and like dating as a trans woman, so that's really interesting and intriguing. And also the first page talks about ghost sex for some reason, so it promises to be very sacrilegious, and I'm kind of into it. But the writing style is a little bit almost to the point of trying too hard to sound quippy, but beyond that, it's intriguing. However, it's not necessarily jumping out to me as I want to continue reading this now, which I'm of two minds about. On the one hand, it's probably nice that I don't have like 10 different things I want to read, but on the other hand, I really want to love everything. It's a conundrum. All right, first chapter of the Gospel of the Font is read, and in this case, what interested me the most wasn't actually the beginning parts of the story, because it doesn't get too far into it, although the language is very crass. It was actually the foreword by the author, because both the author and the protagonist's name is Faith, and so of course you think, oh, the author named the protagonist after herself, but in actuality, and she explained in the opening letter that this book was actually written before her transition, back when she was only Faith to a specific number of people online. So in a weird way, as the letter goes, Faith, the character, isn't named after her. She named herself after the character almost. It was a version of herself that she wanted to be but couldn't be before her transition. So that's really cool. I'm really intrigued by that concept. The language is a bit more crass with a little bit more caricature than I usually like in my stories. There's like an annoying, prissy, ultra Bible camp counselor character that seems a little bit too much like a stereotype. But it's intriguing, and I probably would continue with it. I could still continue with it after, whatever book I choose next gets finished. But we got one more to go, and thankfully this is the shortest one of the bunch. I checked, the entire chapter is like 8 pages. So we're gonna know real quick. Okay, 8 pages read, and I was wrong. The book is based on Korean folklore, but still, it's very, very heavily involved, as our protagonist is a fox spirit who is heavily prejudiced against. Everyone assumes that they're all about, tricking and misdeeds, and already she's showing herself to be quite a spitfire, and I like that. And also, I have learned over the course of this test that reading the forewords in books is really intriguing and adds a lot of depth, like the one with Faith Nath, and like this one has a foreword by Rick Riordan. Obviously, it's his present series, but good on him for pushing something that's not his culture, but letting it be an own voice. And also, I love the aspects of fantasy, how it's, they talk about being in planets and having to scrub the hydro whatevers, but also there's dragons and goblins. Like, I like how it's both, we want to be very sci-fi and very fantasy, and also totally getting some Star Wars Luke stuck in the desert dreaming about his life vibes from Min. So I'm really jazzed about this one, and I kind of knew this was probably going to be the one I gravitated towards, because those 8 pages read so quick, and it is mid-grade, so it's all going to read quick. I still have to finish my in December, though. So to it, I am going with Dragon Pearl by Yoon Ha Lee. This was the one I kind of assumed I'd be going with. However, those other ones are still on my list. And in general, I wanted to make this video because there needs to be love and support to trans friends. I am a bisexual woman who is married to a man, so I get when a community that you're supposed to be a part of, that's supposed to be your support system, has all of these detractors that say you shouldn't be a part of it, that you're not queer enough or the right kind of queer for it. And I wanted to show some support. And for everyone else that is struggling right now because of all the nonsense online, or you're in a country that's about to go through a hellish political year, take a deep breath. Take the break that the holidays can afford, even if they get a little stressful. Sit by a lit Christmas light and read a good book for a little bit. We can do this. We can find people who support us. We can read good books, and we will get through this. And so with nothing else to say, I hope you have a marvelous day and a very happy holiday.